You know what Dark Souls is. You have an opinion of Dark Souls, even if it's just, oh yeah, that's the really mean game that was before Elden Ring. But I'm not here for your attention. Sorry, but I'm here to talk to the obsessed fans that dealt with Dark Souls 2, still cry out for Bloodborne PC, and watch every one of Joseph Anderson's critiques with either praise or anger in your heart. When was the last time you played Dark Souls 1? Not thought about it or maybe watched a video essay about it, but when was the last time you gave hell to Ornstein and Smo? Did you make it all the way to Gwyn, or did Bed of Chaos do you in, or the DLC? Do you even remember? Hello, I am Isabella Valentine. Don't worry about why I'm highlighting that, it's probably not part of a long con. There are so many videos about playing Dark Souls for the first time, or their first time falling in love with Dark Souls. But have you ever thought about the last time? Not solely speaking as like a definitive last time, because you can't predict that per se, but even just you realizing, oh, it's been 5 years since I've played Dark Souls 1. Maybe it's been even a decade. I'm going to talk about my experience actively knowing that I won't be returning to this game. It's funny actually, I was playing through with the purpose of game development, but that game development aspect fell short, leaving me with a Dark Souls run, which I don't regret, but it feels like this is the last time it's like a different tone entirely. Now, in the making of this run, I made a decision I still broke a couple times, but a decision nonetheless. I wasn't going to research anything for the purpose of letting the run be natural and not so optimal. Now, for many of you, that's not going to sound strange or particularly unique in any way, and I also don't have a reputation, as this is probably within under 10 videos I've made on this channel so far. So here's where this reputation will start. Feeling too lost will make me feel too inadequate and worse in video games. So even in my first run of Dark Souls, I was googling Ember locations, some boss fights, and how to best play Dark Souls to some degree. I preceded my first Dark Souls run with Dark Souls 2, where I developed some of these bad habits. I also had some of that toxic rhetoric back then about, only play with a melee weapon, don't use magic, and I think no summons, even though I'm sure I still did at time to time. My decision not to Google was also a decision to let myself play the game in my internal library as its reference guide. And honestly, it was fucking delightful. I had the freedom of never feeling too lost. Okay, well, maybe one time. Hey, man. Oh, God. I should have said it. I should have just not cared. Okay. I think I might be hitting my limit for now, actually. We're gonna just... Which is really all I was worried about feeling in my very first runs. And because of that, I felt more comfortable playing out of order. If I'm remembering the order right, I went straight to New Londo first, because I needed to get a Sorcerer's Catalyst because I wanted to use magic, but I didn't start with it as I chose Deprived. After that, at some point, I went pretty much through it, and I was like, oh wait, why can't I open up the next area? I think this was one of the times I had Googled, I talked to the guy and he didn't give me the key, and I was like, oh wait, why is that? And I learned that it was because, and this was one of the cases where I didn't feel bad about Googling it, I had to get the Lord Vessel first for him to give me the key, which I obviously didn't know, so I just went and killed him. And I opened up I unflooded the area early. Then I went to Undeadburg, because I think I knew the depths would probably still be too much at that particular moment. And at that point, I just continued to skip around quite a bit. I killed Taurus Demon, but not as the second boss, but like after Capra Demon. I think even after Gargoyles. I killed Gaping Dragon after ONS, as I still needed the Ember for being near the depths, and I just decided to run through it for the hell of it. I could have entirely skipped it, but I was like, I'm here already, may as well just go through it. I got to enjoy what people in all these damn essays talk about with non-linearity and interconnectedness. Which I still feel is overblown, but this is the first run where I could actually digest it, because I had a partially filled map in my head. If I did this blindly, this would not be applicable. It's also why I understand the bad taste of the game's teleporting system after ONS. Imagine there was like a path from Anar Londo to New Londo or something, or Sense Fortress having a path to the Demon Ruins. It could have felt amazing, I understand that now. Being unoptimal, yet still feeling somewhat proficient, was my perfect blunt rotation. I put points into vigor, strength, dexterity, and intelligence, and at various points endurance because I was mixing melee and magic. So I know early on I got my intelligence high, but after that I was like, oh, I want to be able to use different weapons, so it was strength and dexterity, and I kind of leveled that up. It was nice not having to worry about how much my magic could do more damage, or I could find more sorceries if I went to the DLC. I just played the game, as most of you would, maybe as like a 10th or 20th run or something. If it wasn't clear, this most recent run really did solidify a love for this game, and it's probably my favorite run I've done. Dark Souls 1 feels both gross to play, but also more locked in time-wise than like the Bloodborne-focused turn the games make with Dark Souls 3 and beyond. Attacking is slow, health bars are a fraction of what Dark Souls 3 and Elden Ring have to offer, damage is pretty high. To elaborate on an earlier note I said about I played this game for the purpose of making my own, this was the reason. I could have played through Dark Souls 3 for, bosses, or Elden Ring for the open world elements, but both of those games, along with a lot of modern ARPGs, are rooted in like speed and high reflex, really inspired by things like Devil May Cry, which nothing's wrong with this, but it's a different feeling than Dark Souls 1. Noah Caldwell-Gervais talks about this in his dense essay on the Souls trilogy. I don't feel all RPGs need to be slow or even tactical, but when it's done right, it really just works for me. One element of Elden Ring that has bothered me since day one is Torrent. Not that the horse is a bad thing, I certainly wouldn't want to walk across the whole game on foot, but being on Torrent, it kind of made pathing a lot more linear and a lot less appreciative of the scenery around me, because I'm just flying by, I can just race from point to point, and since Elden Ring borders on being an Atlas game in length, for the sake of efficiency, it feels kind of wrong just to hang around in an open field, and if you're not using a modded version of like Reforged or Convergence mod, fighting casual enemies gives you no runes, so it's almost expected that you should be on the horse and just get to where you gotta go, especially on a repeat run. Not saying anything should change about that design philosophy, but for how gorgeous the game is, I wish I had more time to sit down and enjoy the visuals from time to time. Dark Souls 1 doesn't have this issue, as, one, time-wise, even if you're playing in an optimal way, at most it would probably take you like 10 hours or less to play, and unoptimized, I should have looked at how much time my save was, probably like 15 to 20 hours, and I enjoyed the scenery more than any other run I've played of the game, and this is probably my third or fourth time beating this game. And because I didn't worry about optimization or anything, I really was just walking around taking things in and taking random items I see along the way. One of my biggest complaints about a lot of either open world games or a lot of TV shows, just the color design, everything feels so plain and boring. So it was kind of nice that every place really felt like I was in this crazy world. Even the depths, having those strange creatures that can do curse on you, it was like, oh yeah, I forgot, this place sucks. It was nice to finally give these areas the time they deserve. Now, in my original draft of the script, I go more into the health differences between some of the final bosses of these FromSoft titles, and Gwyn has about 4,000 health. Soul of Cinder, end of Dark Souls 3, has 10k, and Elden Beast has 20k. Now, none of these bosses feel like a slog, the engines support these health pools, but, Gwyn takes about 10 to 20 hits. It's not a long fight, but it still feels significant, bit hollow, pun intended, but not less significant. It's also not high tension because the music is just, well, once again, Dark Souls, the music that's here. But that also kind of lays into the fact that this shouldn't really feel like an epic fight or that it takes a billion hits to kill him. Just that, this is a tough fight. This is an RPG, more than the rest of the Souls games, so I'm not really going to go further into those numbers because, well, it kind of feels like it makes sense. It feels almost closer to like a turn-based game with the fact that sometimes you have a spell that will do a lot of damage. It's not like you're doing a bunch of fast spells for mini damage. You try to hit a critical hit if you can and get this thing over with. And I think only Elden Ring out of the core Souls games, and I'm not counting Bloodborne here because my experience isn't that familiar, but I think Elden Ring once again balances? Crazy. I do think Elden Ring balances the RPG to action elements well enough to be as good of an in-between as Dark Souls 1, just in different ways. Because there's so many different elements in that game, and the same way that this game has the weird blue Titanite chunks, I think they have spells, and they're not called miracles, and what are they called? I don't remember. I almost want to call them aspirations because I know that's close to the word. I just don't remember it exactly. But okay, at this point I'm rambling. All that said, I hope to get more games that allow themselves to not need to be action set pieces or turn-based games. I want them to be like these methodical, weird middle grounds like Dark Souls 1. And, you know, they don't need to be like Persona and you hit the weakness or Sekiro. Just this weird place that I think a lot of games should try to fulfill, and that's why I was trying to do it myself with my own game design. I hope to get back to that someday. I don't name this chapter in poor taste or criticism of anybody, but opinions do change, sometimes in vast ways. It's why for literally any purpose, you should consume multiple reviews, if you're going to consume reviews at all, for something before seeing a movie, watching a show, playing a game. My opinion of Dark Souls 1 has varied quite a good deal. I've always thought the game was at least good, but since this was my favorite run, you know, like, it's the most positive it's been. But funny enough, still in this favorite run, getting loose in Duke's Archives nearly made me end it all in-game. I would have wrote this like philosophical piece about sometimes the last time you do something, it's not on good terms, and I would have made the video about that. But I hung in there, so nope, can't run with that point. So I'll say, God, I really got a good reminder on why these games can be so deeply frustrating to like some. When you live in a proficient Souls player world, you kind of get over a lot of the, oh, this is upsetting me, oh, this bothers me. This really got me close to being like, there was a friend who I talked to at work who was like, oh, man, I just couldn't get through it. I just get so upset. I most understood that because I was like, ooh. But I hung in there because I almost quit because of rage, and I just didn't feel like that was right. But back to reviews, even reviews from a single person can change significantly. Your own opinions can change significantly. Some things have a time and place, and you may not be in that time nor place or know when that will come. This run, intended to be used for studying and game design purpose, became a very fun ride through Thordran one last time. And that's the beauty of games with emergent interactable gameplay, because you can really experience them in many ways. Future Isabella here, coming to finish up this point as I realize it's fragmented now while in the editing process. It's meaningless to review anything, because there's a plethora of reasons why something may or may not work for you, not even including the media itself. And playing through my favorite run of Dark Souls while having one of the lowest lows I could have had really showcased to me how essential a reviewer's writing is to be able to properly sell an opinion. I'm saying a lot of positive things about Dark Souls 1, but how can it be so positive yet give me a low moment so bad it almost changed the ending of this video? Anyway, that's all I forgot to add. Take on reviews as persuasive suggestions of art, not gospel to die on a hill for or against. On to the conclusion. To close out this video is also to close out Dark Souls for the last time. But I never really spent time talking about what that means, that sense of finality. Am I permanently banning myself from ever touching this game again? No. To resolve the video's core, no. I'm more than likely going to revisit Dark Souls someday when, I don't know, I guess probably under the guise of getting my girlfriend to complete a Souls game. But remember what I said earlier? Could be 5 years. Could be a full decade. I hope in a decade I have a kid, and maybe FromSoft gets washed up in that time, but I have vivid memories of that golden age, and I look forward to when my kid's old enough to play it with me. I can show them through this world too. And I've thought about it for a while, but I think I want to make this idea of the last time a series. And that would be like my channel hook or something, you know? Talking about video games, swan songs, and for this game, at least, I easily could have left it alone at Duke's Archive. I wouldn't argue me going and collecting the remaining Lord Souls, I think I just had like 4 Kings at the time, was so worth it that I had to finish. But I didn't debate on dropping off of the game out of boredom or a lack of interest, as I recently did with Near Replicant. It was rage, and that felt very unsatisfactory, as I knew it was just my rule at the beginning to not research anything that held me in the very frustrating thing of sorting this out. So I broke the rule there to actually continue on, and every other point I was back to enjoying it. That's also the thing about rules, yes, is that they can be important for a challenge or something, but equally, if you aren't having fun due to your own logic, it's not a skill issue, that's a you issue. Break every rule if it means you're actually back to having fun again. This actually happened in my very first Dark Souls run. I was getting bored and upset, but I also had this katana. I remember holding it in Blighttown, and I debated switching to it, but I was strength build. It was unoptimal. Yet, I decided to go for it anyway. And that decision, immediately I started having fun trying to go through this game again, because now it became a quest to make this katana feel like a good tool. And that's when I was Googling embers and trying to do what I can to have a plus 15 katana. I was so happy to use what made me feel awesome. It's why I've never thought about Dark Souls 1 as a bad game, because I always found ways to get past the moment of frustration and still feel satisfied. I needed to research in my very first run to feel that way, and I needed to figure out how to get out of Duke's archives to feel it this time. It was nice to fight Gwyn and not really feel like I was too powerful or underpowered. It was nice to get closure on Dark Souls 1. There are many jokes about it online, but the last online 5,000 days ago energy is a very real thing. I even saw a joke about it the other day about someone hitting up an old friend on, I think it looks like a version of Xbox Live chat, saying, "Hey man, I'm this guy, remember me?" And said, apparently whoever he was trying to talk to, their younger brother responded, "Hey, that guy is dead, but I'm down to play something if you like." Which, Jesus Christ, that hurts the heart, but equally, that's kind of beautiful. One of them remembered to message their friend. Two, the younger brother is funny enough, like, "Oh, you knew my brother? I'm down to play something with you." And there possibly be a connection there that's like its own thing. It obviously won't be the same connection the original person reached out for, but it's also like a, you know what, yeah, I would like to play that thing with you. I have friends that at multiple points, we could have had our last conversation, and not all of those would have been on good terms. One of those friends I've had at multiple points where we've taken breaks effectively is a dear friend that currently I'm playing games with again about every other day, who had told me, due to the nature of his job, which I'm not going to just air out, he could die. And if he dies, he told his family to tell me and a mutual bestie so we wouldn't be confused about why he didn't respond anymore. He's even talked about when we play games together that effectively it's me and my friend are the only real people he talks to on the internet. Like, he has other friends, but we're the online friends, and we've known him for a bad decade now. It was one of the sweetest things I've ever heard in my life. But also, it had me tearing up. It made me think about, oh yeah, my friends could die too soon. I could die too soon. But I don't really want to sit in that thought. It's not really the point of this video because it isn't the last time. At least not today. Not when I'm posting this. Not when I'm scripting this. Hopefully not when you're watching this. Saying goodbye to Dark Souls 1 is hard all the same. It's a very good game, made by developers that never have to worry about the same, "Oh, half the game is just a lot worse than the other because we ran out of time or budget," any longer. The experience of revisiting a game to put it to bed is also quite an experience. Every boss I beat, every location I swept past, every spell cast, all for the last time as this character in this world. I regret nothing, and I also have no layover feelings. The final third of the game definitely had me excited to get to the end point, but the first 2/3 had me so invigorated. I've never been more into Dark Souls 1 than working my way to ONS. I truly believe in this sense of closure. Finality. That's why I chose the Dark Lord ending. Kindling the fire assumes continuation and possibly stagnation. Laying in the dark offers a new future, a new reality. Of course, I'm going to recommend, if you haven't went back to Dark Souls 1 in a while or haven't even beat it once, give it one last go. Allow it to be in your life, and maybe, if you're willing, let it go after. Uninstall it, hide it in your Steam library or library of choice, move on to another game. You know how many indie darlings I still have to get to that I keep buying? I earlier said I had dropped Near Replicant. Yeah, I did. And I've let that go because that wasn't something that I had a positive experience with. I'm like, this isn't really working for me, so I'm going to keep trying. It was, no, I kind of can just watch someone play or just look up the ending once I'm deep enough and get the point. It frees up space on my SSD where something else can go. Finality is important, but also opinions change. Maybe this wasn't the time nor place for me to play Near Replicant, in the same way that I tried to watch Hunter x Hunter, and the very first time I watched it all the way through Chimera Antarch, I thought it was just okay, And I hated the first 30 episodes. But then now I love the first 30 episodes. I need to go back through the rest again because I'm going to have a blast of a time. I can just see it. But this video, as that's the focus, this is the resting place of Dark Souls 1 for me. You know, I'm thinking about it now. I didn't even really talk about the NPC interactions, mainly because I didn't really talk to them. But the people I did kind of bond with were Griggs and Big Hat Logan. Even Logan I did end up killing because, well, I could make up a smooth reason for it now to tie into this narrative of letting things go, but really it was just because I was curious. He had like a quest, effectively a quest line if you buy all of his spells and then he disappears and then you can go and kill him. Of course I researched this a bit. But I hadn't done it before, so it was interesting, I guess. Dark Souls 1, thank you for allowing a culture of inspiration to take on the world. But also, even though I'm going to still be thinking about you often, rest well. Let the darkness come.
Let Garth and Frout serve your highness.
That from soft, that's not as epic as you think it was. That is going to be in the video.
That's going to be right at the end.